Hello there everybody, this is Krista and welcome back to Crochet Witch Tarot, and today I am doing a VR to a really fun tag from Logan at Larkin Legend, who made a tag called My Hashtag Forever Decks. So today we are going to be looking at all of my decks that, as of this current moment, I just could not see myself being without. They would never, by my own plans, leave my collection. So I think we should just get right into it. I'm hoping that I really wanted to do this tag. The only reason I hesitated because I was nervous to be a bit repetitive, like I'd be a broken record or something, but I think we're just gonna do it because it's fun. Anyway, for starters, let's get probably my most obvious out of the way. It is the Northern Animal Tarot, but with a twist, because currently I have the brand new 3rd edition of the Northern Animal Tarot, which is absolutely beautiful. Now, this is a tarot that, if you have been with me for a while now, you know it is hands down my favorite tarot of all time. There's just something about it. I don't even quite know how to put words to it. I love the coloring in this new deck compared to the 1st edition that I currently have. Anyway, there's something magical about it and something that just really I connected to so instantly when I got it. Probably, oh my gosh, close to maybe 3 years ago now, 2 years, I don't know, something like that. And it has just been an absolute ride or die ever since. I really, really love the artwork in this deck and love the improvements to the color that have been made in the 2nd and now 3rd edition. And for me, what makes this tarot stand out from any of my others is really those extra cards that we get. There are quite a few now extra oracle cards that I always keep in, and like I say all the time, I have, this is the one for the 3rd edition now. It is a fairy realm card, something like that. I mean, come on. Perfect. But I have yet to pull a reading from this deck where I do not pull one of those extra oracle cards. I really especially love the shadow cards in this deck. So we have, like here, we've got Sasquatch, there's an old tree, a troll, a ghost. It's just fabulous. Oh, I love this Blood Moon card as well. That is not in the 1st edition, but I do think is pretty sure it's in the 2nd. The only new one here is that Fairy Ring card, but this one is such a classic for me. And I now have 2 different versions of it as well, which is totally seems to be a pattern for me, where any deck that I have multiple copies of is probably one that I feel very strongly about in some way, because it's not many that I do that with. So that is the Northern Animal Tarot. So I guess I should have said we're going to start with tarot first. And my next deck also probably comes as no surprise. It is the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. Which this one, the way I feel like I would describe it is it just feels like the inside of my brain. For some reason, it takes me right to any sort of imaginary world I have or currently build for myself in my own mind. This is always what it looks like. This feels like magic to me. When I picture any sort of magic, this is it. This totally captures it, and I love how it's loosely based around fairy tale stories, but not to the point where, you know, it relies heavily on that. But just knowing it's there, as a children's librarian, of course, is going to really win me over as well. But I love how balanced this deck is, and again, really just how magical it feels. This is one that really sticks around, kind of out on my reading table all the time. And it's one of those decks where it's just, I know it like the back of my hand, you know? So even though it does go a bit in its own direction, I don't know, I always know exactly what it's saying to me. And not to mention the artwork is fabulous. I do think that an oracle deck, a matching oracle deck is in the works, which I cannot wait for. That's going to be incredible. That's one of my favorite cards, this Four of Challenges. So, that is the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. Okay. Next up, we've got the Herb Crafters Tarot, now in this beautiful bag made by Sunset Bow Tarot. I will try and remember to link their Etsy shop below, but gorgeous bags. I have this one and this that I'm keeping my new Northern Animal in as well, and it's so pretty. So this one, I mean, I feel like has to be in this category because of how many different versions of this deck, or copies I should say, I've gone through until I realized how much of a favorite it is. But this one really holds its own in my collection as something unique, where I don't really feel like I have another deck that fills the slot that this one does. And it also is just a really good memory because this deck is really what I would say kind of kicked off the friendship between Andy and I, because we were pulling cards with each other from this deck every day because we both really wanted to get to know it. Which was really such a fun practice and has made this deck just even more special. But I really love, again, this one feels magical in a magical, mundane kind of way, which I really appreciate. Especially in the summertime, this is one that never went away. It just really connects me to nature and the outside world around me. And I feel like I really learn something every time I use this deck. It's sort of like I come away from a reading with something extra I feel like in a manageable way I can do. Some sort of practice or ritual that really catches my interest. And again, not to mention that the artwork is gorgeous. But this is just one of those where I've tried other herb decks, like solely herb decks, and just nothing is the same as this one. I really, really enjoy using this deck, especially just drawing one card per day. Seems to really fit the bill for me with this one. So that is the Herb Crafters Tarot. And I've got one more tarot deck here, and then the rest will be oracle decks, because I really tried to just think about decks that didn't feel like they could be kind of replaced by something else. I've got so many more tarots that I absolutely love, but a lot of the times to me there's tarots that, even though I really, really adore them, if I think about it, the premise of them and how I use them could be easily replaced by something else. Again, not to say that I don't love many more tarot decks, but I really wanted to keep it to things that I really loved, and also I felt like I couldn't easily replace with something else that I've tried at least. Or I'm sentimental about it. Actually, which is reminding me of one more. So we got one more after this, never mind. Next up, we've got the Carte Postal Tarot. And now this is a bit similar to Herb Crafters in the sense of, this one is kind of, nostalgic is not the right word, but sentimental. This one is sentimental to me because this is one where, I mean, first of all, I got it in a giveaway because Sandy won and I was the friend she tagged, so that's the only reason I have this deck really to begin with. And it's one that me, Andy, and Sandy all got at the same time. And we spent pretty much a whole Saturday morning and well into the afternoon one weekend going through this deck card by card together and really analyzing each of them and how we felt about them, and it was so much fun and such a good memory that even for that reason alone, I just can't imagine myself parting with this deck because every time I pull it out, I think of that memory. But also, it's one that because of that as well, I feel like I know so well because we've gone through every picture and I remember the thoughts we have and the things we laughed at and things like that. And just found joy in. So I really, really love this deck for that reason, but also it's one that really kind of hits that ancestral realm really well for me because we've got these actual old pictures here. And so it really helps connect me to that as well, which I don't find I currently have any other deck that does so quite in the same way, which is interesting. But I really do love this one. It feels special for all those reasons. So that is the Carte Postal Tarot, and let me quickly grab my one more that I somehow forgot about. You know why? It's because I don't keep it with the rest of my decks, so sometimes I just forget. Anyhow, probably won't be a surprise either. But it is the Cat Tarot. My first ever tarot deck, and now Stevie's tarot deck because I don't want to be a broken record, but as I've said many, many times, I learned to read tarot by doing readings for Stevie with this deck. And it also just, better than any other cat deck I have tried or seen, captures cat energy so entirely well. It's one that I find I always use the guidebook with because the meanings do tend to be sometimes a bit different than what I would initially read it as because it really is getting into the lens of a cat, which I think is so fantastic. But I really love this one, and I mean, that is Stevie. I just love that association as well. This past week, actually, we had a bit of a scare with Stevie. She spent a few nights at the kitty hospital with some kidney issues. She was there Tuesday through Friday, so not a fun couple days. We were very worried. Luckily, she is home now. We've got some interesting things we're doing in order to care for her until she can get her levels checked again. Just, you know, some antibiotics and fluids and stuff. But while she was staying at the vet overnight for those few days, I really found so much comfort pulling this deck out and just kind of even doing readings to check in on her and see how she was doing, and it was so spot on, which was really, really cool to just see that. I mean, this deck and her really have such a connection. So even when I couldn't see her or talk to her in person, it felt like there was, in some way, a way to do it. Not that I was not at all using this deck for any sort of, cat medical advice by any means. It was purely just to see how she was feeling and doing. Because, you know, it's no fun when you have to be away from your pets, especially when you're feeling sick. So that was a really, really nice thing to have, and just now even more strongly relates this deck to her for me. So that is the Cat Tarot, and I could never part with this one. It's just, it's so special, even for the fact that, I mean, oh my gosh, that's her. That is her. Even for the fact of it being my first deck, but beyond that, I just love having my own little Stevie deck, it feels like. All right, now let's go into the oracles. All right, first oracle I have here, I feel like is probably another obvious one, but it is my Cottage Witch oracle. I mean, how could someone part with their own creation, right? I feel like I had to bring this one in. But, I mean, beyond that, in a way, I know I've shown this probably so many times, but it really is a deck I couldn't part with because I made it entirely for my own practice in a way. And it's just also been such a cool experience to be able to share that with everyone and see other people enjoying it, that even beyond making it initially for my own use and really feeling strongly about the associations that I made here, beyond that, there's such a memory of really the work that went into it, not even to create it, but sort of behind the scenes within myself, of realizing that this is something I could do, and then seeing that other people would enjoy it. I mean, those are things that a year ago I never would have thought could have been the case, even a little bit. Like, the ability to make my own oracle was not even somewhat in my brain, because I just never would have considered it. I never would have thought I could do it. And so, putting this out into the world, just beyond, again, me, of course, loving to use it because all of these associations really make a lot of sense for me. Beyond that, it's just been such a cool growth in a way, and really proof of that growth, and I don't know, just a way to connect with everyone, which is really, really cool. So, of course, this would never leave my collection. There is currently, I have to, I get so uncomfy about this, but I feel like, I don't mean to be plugging this everywhere on the internet, but just to say that if you missed out on the first print run, there is currently a pre-order open until February 18th for another printing of this, and there's also an optional expansion pack. So if you do already have the deck and would like a 27 card expansion, that's there as well in my Etsy shop. Okay, enough about that. Next, another classic, Coastal Curiosities. I know, the shock and surprise. This is my second edition, and this never leaves my reading table. It's Coastal Curiosities and Cottage Witch that are sitting there at all times, as well as Memento Mori, which could have made this video as well, but I don't know. I didn't want to make this too long. Anyway, I love the keywords of this deck and how dynamic these collages are. They feel very natural, but then also like I'm in some sort of like Victorian era home and looking at what's on the walls. I don't know. It's very interesting, and I really love looking at all these images. But because there is so much going on that I love in these collages, I find, do I say the word collages weird? I just said collages. That's interesting. Anyway, this aesthetically just goes so well with so many of my different tarot decks. It always surprises me, just the breadth it has. Breadth. That's another weird one. Sounds like breath. I mean breadth with a D. Do you say that differently? I don't know. I don't know these things. Anyway, I really, really love this deck. It never disappoints. I love the expansiveness of the keywords, the colors that are used, every single thing about this is just, I love it. It's one of those oracles, I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but no matter what card I pull, I'm not disappointed. Does anyone ever have that experience where there's oracle decks that you love most of the cards, but then there's some cards that just like aren't as exciting to you, and when you pull that one, it's like, oh. I mean, like, I'll read the message, but kind of wish it was something else. Anyway. Love this one. Coastal Curiosities. I'm pretty sure you can still get this version of the deck. Alright. Then we've got the Grandmother's Oracle by Kara Simons. Now this is the precursor to the Song of the Grandmothers deck. So I've had this oracle for quite some time. Definitely, I would say we're going on 3, maybe 4 years or something of just spending time together. Does anyone else view their decks that way of like, we've been together for 3 years now. We're committed. Anyway, so this is the, I guess you could say, kind of OG version of Song of the Grandmothers, which, for not wanting to be repetitive, I did not include in this list, but I absolutely love Song of the Grandmothers, and that is such a wonderful deck that you can get now, but this one you can't. So I think that was another reason I wanted to include it in my forever decks, because I would never part with this version, because I could probably never get it again. And there is something about the photography used in this deck compared to the illustrations of Song of the Grandmothers, which is they are absolutely beautiful, but for some reason this just feels like something I could have pulled out of the little like magazine rack in one of my grandma's houses. You know what I mean? How grandmas just have those little magazine racks? This feels like something that would have just been sitting in there. And so there's something about that I just really love. And again, just for the fact to have had this deck for so long and have used it so consistently since getting it, that I just feel really bonded to this particular deck. I like pulling a Grandmother of the Month every month. That's been a really just nice practice that for whatever reason I feel like I never talk about. Sometimes I don't know, because I've done it for a while, and I pull one and I sit with the energy for the month, and I don't know, I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I've never talked about doing that, but regardless, it's a really good practice. I really love it. Again, totally recommend the Song of the Grandmothers deck, because that one took this deck and expanded upon it, so it really is amazing. But I love this copy. I just could never imagine myself being without it. There's something about it that is just very magical to me. So, that is the Grandmother's Oracle by Kara Simons. And actually, let's go into this one, because, I mean, this is another one that probably won't be a surprise, but I've added into that monthly practice. It is my Brian Froud Fairies Oracle. And now why I say that is because this is not one I use as like a everyday reader kind of oracle. This is very much a spiritual work, kind of altar working type deck for me that I pull from pretty consistently. But this year I've decided to start pulling a fairy of the month alongside my Grandmother of the Month, which has been really nice as well, because I do like sitting with the energies in this deck for a little bit longer, because the guidebook really does give you a lot to think about. And I just really love the fairy energy that comes through in this deck. It's a bit more wild than any of the other fairy decks I have. It feels really true to what I imagine the Fae would look like and how they would be. It really feels that way to me. And so this is one that I just don't feel like I could ever part with because fairy work has been so important to me, and this is like the pinnacle of any sort of fairy deck I have. And I love it. It's so good. It's so good. I really love the artwork as well, and the guidebook is just, it's something else. Oh geez, okay, there goes a bunch of cards. Anyway, that is the Brian Froud Fairies Oracle. Did anyone just hear just every bone, all the bones near my knees crack? Because wow, that just made me feel like I'm aging or something. Anyway. Is this the last one I want to show? I feel like I'm missing something. What am I forgetting? It just popped in my head because fairies, but I feel like there's an oracle I'm forgetting. Oh no! Oh, well. I don't know. I'm stumped. Oh, I know. Okay, let's go to that next. Of course. Right now, the animal deck for me, Woodland Wardens. No surprise there. But that's what made me think of it, because I really would want to make sure in my forever decks, I've got a deck that covers, no, how am I trying to say that? I want to make sure that the decks I would keep forever cover all the bases. And another really important one for me is animal workings. And this has been my favorite since I've gotten it in. Ooh, do we see the nail polish situation? Yikes. I love the animals and plants here. I don't need to belabor this deck anymore, do I? I know I talk about it so consistently, but it's such a favorite, and as of right now, is totally a forever deck because I just don't feel like I've got something that really beats it out right now when it comes to the animal work I like to do. So, I really, really love this one. That is the Woodland Wardens Oracle. And now, last but not least, we've got the Celtic Spirit Oracle. I really, really love this one. It feels super connected, as I've said, to my spiritual work I like to do. Really also any sort of witchery in general I like to do. It's of course very Celtic in nature, which tends to be where my path leans, I would say. So it just is so spot on for that kind of work. I love working with this oracle with the Gaian Tarot. Beautiful pairing. But I also love that we get 3 keywords with this deck. It's just so well done. I really, really enjoy it. I love the themes that come up here. It's just been a really important one in my practice since I've gotten it. I really love it. Look at that guy. I mean, it's so good. It's so good, and it's not one I expected to love at all. I really got it because I was interested in its theme, and I just saw nothing but rave reviews about it. So I took a chance on it, and now, like, I totally get it. It's such a good oracle. So, that is the Celtic Spirit Oracle, and my last forever deck. So, I would love to hear what any of your forever decks would be, like the decks that you just could never imagine leaving your collection. I think this is such a fun tag, even if it feels repetitive in some ways. I just love hearing that kind of stuff. I want to hear people's absolute favorites of things. So, other than that, I think that's all I have to say. I hope you are having a wonderful start to your week, and I will see you again very soon.